friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Data and I am so excited to be sharing my love of makeup and beauty with you all. Today I have a review of the Menagerie Flight Club palette. This is the monochromatic purple palette that launched back in March. Here is what the inside of that palette looks like. I am going to chat a little bit about the formula, I'm going to show you some swatches, and we'll finish up with this eye look. I hope this video helps you decide whether you want to buy the palette or maybe gives you some inspiration of a look to try if you've already got this palette. So let's dive right on in. So the Flight Club palette launched for pre-order back in, I believe, February, and it first shipped in March. I actually got mine at the end of April because I ordered for the April pre-order. The palette retails for $38.95 US. If you are an international shopper like I am, you will pay international shipping as well. At the moment, keep in mind, there are some issues with USPS international shipping, and everything is very delayed in the ports and in the international mail hubs in the US, and oftentimes brands, especially little indie brands like Menagerie, are finding it very hard to ship from the US internationally. Right now, there's actually been some brands, I think Menagerie is one of them, that's had to completely stop their shipping as of, I believe, the 13th of May for international. This is temporary and it is related to all of the stuff that's going on in the world right now. It is not the brand's fault, so keep that in mind. If you are an international shopper, there may be a bit of a delay in the next time you'll be able to pick these products up. Here's a closer look at what the outer packaging looks like. You can see it's got the really cute fruit bat holding a bunch of plums. All of the shade names inside the palette are also bat related. I'll give you a quick glance at that as well. Hopefully that is focused. I think this palette is so cute. And it also has a little thing right below the mirror here that says you've got a bat attitude. This is my first Menagerie palette, so I can't give you a really in-depth comparison of what the formula is like compared to past Menagerie palettes, but lovely folks here on YouTube like Annette's Makeup Corner or Amy Loves Makeup have, I believe, the entire Menagerie collection, so you can definitely check out their videos on this palette if you're wanting that comparison. I can compare it to other eyeshadows, different formulas, things like that. These are pressed pigment shadows, so they do stain a little bit. They do let you know that on the website. It also says it on the back of the packaging that they are pressed pigments, so keep that in mind if that's something that really bothers you. In terms of formula and feel, I would actually compare this palette to probably the Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes, the sort of original 14 pan palettes. The shimmers feel very much like my shimmers in Soft Glam and Norvina, where they're soft and they almost feel, for lack of a better term, fluffy. Like they almost feel like they're cushiony and they're a little bit crumbly. They do have some fallout, but so does the ABH palettes with most people. It's not the end of the world. They're very soft pressed, and so in my personal experience, that is the closest sort of formula I can relate these to. I think the mattes in here are a little bit more pigmented than the purples in, say, the ABH Norvina palette, but the Norvina palette is meant to be a little bit lighter, and it's not a pressed pigment palette like this one is, so that makes sense. There are 12 shades in this palette, 5 shimmers and 7 mattes. Most of them are purple except for these two, which are Squeak and Downside Up, which are neutral shades. A lot of people had complained about the neutral shades and didn't really like that they were neutrals in there and would have preferred other purples. An option you do have, because the Menagerie palettes are magnetic, is you could actually pop those out and replace them with singles off the Menagerie site. The Menagerie matte singles are like $5, so it's not the end of the world if that's something that really bothers you. Personally, I actually like the neutrals. I like having something to be able to tone down a look or bring it up a little more intensely, and I generally prefer not straight monochromatic palettes. So for me, the neutrals are great. I really like them, but some people aren't into them. So keep that in mind if you prefer an all purple palette. This does have 2 neutrals in it. The only other thing I will mention, and again this does not bother me but it would bother some people, is that 4 of the shimmers in 2 pairs are fairly similar. They look pretty different in camera though, but they are pretty similar on the eye, and that is Nocturnal and Fruity Feast look fairly similar, as well as Hangin' Out and Megabat look pretty similar. Now, I'm hoping you can see this on camera, but Nocturnal definitely has more of a light blue periwinkly kind of shift, whereas Fruity Feast is more of a silver purple. They're not exact dupes, they do look different, but they're similar. Similar with Hangin' Out and Megabat. Hangin' Out is definitely more of a pinky red warm shift, and Megabat is more of a blue cool tone shift. Again, they do look different, but they are similar. For some people, especially the reviews I was watching, people say they're too similar. If that bothers you, be aware of that. For me, I think they look different enough that I'm okay having all 4 of those in the palette. It doesn't bother me at all. But be aware that might be an issue for you. Before we get into the look, I want to do some quick live swatches. I'm just going to do them down the side of my arm here. This arm has slightly fewer tattoos, so I think it's the better one to swatch on. I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to start at Fruity Feast and work across, then Hangin' Out and work across, and then Flying Fox and work across that way. So this one here is Fruity Feast. It is a little bit of a lighter purple shimmer. It's almost got like a lilac-y shift to it. Next, I have the darker of the 2 neutrals. This is Squeak. And so Squeak is sort of a pinky, rosy brown. It's not quite neutral, but it's not purple either. Next, we have Sky Puppy, which is my absolute favorite name in the entire palette. This one is a very vibrant magenta purple, I would say. And also just Sky Puppy is such a cute name. And then underneath that we have Nocturnal, which is the other of the 2 lighter shimmery purples. I'm hoping that's showing up on camera that you can see that Fruity Feast and Nocturnal are fairly different, but they're not totally different. I don't know if you can see that, but this was the finger that Sky Puppy was on here, and it is already a little bit stained. And Sky Puppy is not the darkest shade in this palette, so like I said, it does stain, keep that in mind. Here we have Hangin' Out, which is one of the deeper purple shimmers. This one has more of a warm pinky red shift to it. We have the lighter of the 2 neutrals, which is Downside Up. On me, this shade pretty much disappears right into my skin. I don't even think you could see that swatch. That's just basically the color that my skin is. It's cool. Here we have a Little Baddie, which is a sort of cooler toned purpley pink shade there. And the last one is Flighty. And Flighty is a very cool toned deep purple. These are really bad swatches, sorry y'all. There, I think you can see the staining a little bit better on my hand there. And our last room here, running out of space, sorry. We have Flying Fox here, which is also a pretty deep purple, but Flying Fox is much pinker than Flighty. We have Megabat, which is a nice, deep, sparkly purple, again, more cool toned. We have Wingin' It, which is a sort of mauvey purple, in my opinion also fairly neutral. And then our last shade down here, we have run right out of room. This is After Dark, and this one is much more of like a burgundy red kind of color. So that, I'm hoping that shows up, is the entire 12 shades all swatched on my arm together. And just in case you are wondering, here are the shades after being wiped off. You can see many of them do leave a stain. I did not double cleanse or anything like that, and I don't have any primer underneath these shades, so that is why the staining is a little bit more significant than it would be on the eyes, but they will still stain the eyes a little bit, so keep that in mind. And with the swatches done, I think we should go ahead and jump into the look. All right, now that we're all zoomed in, we can get started. I'm just going to part my bangs again. I've already done my base makeup and I have already set my eye primer, so we're ready to just jump right in with the eyeshadow. My favorite look to do with this palette is a purple halo eye, so I think that's what we're going to start with today. To start off, I'm going to take this big fluffy brush, and this shade here, this color is called A Little Baddie. Off camera, I'm just looking at my handheld mirror here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Sometimes when I do a halo eye, I will take the crease all the way across, sometimes I won't, but in this case I'm going to. Next, I'm going to use a slightly smaller blending brush, and this shade up here, that one is Sky Puppy, which is absolutely my favorite name in the entire palette. I think that's adorable. And I'm just going to put this in the outer and inner corners again, but not quite as far in as A Little Baddie. I'm going to take this up to the crease, but I'm not going to take this color all the way across the crease. And next I'm going to take Flighty, which is this deep purple shade here, on a teeny tiny little blending brush. And I am just going to use this to really deepen up the very outer and inner corners, but make sure the rest of the colors are still visible. Flighty is a little more cool toned than the other two colors I've used here. If you prefer to keep this whole look more warm toned, you could use Flying Fox, which is the deep, more reddy purple. But I am going to use the more cool toned color, just for some definition and contrast, but you absolutely don't have to do that. And then I'm going back to my big fluffy blending brush. This one is clean now, so I'm just going to use it to smooth all the colors together and make sure the eyes are even. And for the center of the eye, I am going to take Nocturnal, which is up here. I actually apply it first with a brush and then with my finger over top to increase the intensity. You can choose one or the other if that's easier for you, but they do apply pretty well with both. I do find there to be a little bit of fallout with this one. I don't know if you can see that underneath the eye, but I will deal with that in a second. It's not a big deal. If fallout really bugs you, you could definitely use a glitter glue for these shades. I don't, but you absolutely could. It, I assume, would work pretty well. And then I just take a little bit on my finger and just tap that on top, just to increase the intensity just a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to take a tiny little flat shader brush and a bit of Flighty. That was the deepest purple we used. And I'm just going to put this underneath the eye, really close to the lash line, and I'm not going to blend it just yet. And then I'm going to take a fluffier brush with A Little Baddie, and I'm going to blend over where we put Flighty on the under lash line there, just to soften it out and blend it into the gradient on the upper eye a little bit more. Okay, so that is the eyeshadows done. I am going to do my liner and lashes off camera, and then we can come back and chat about it. So here is the finished look. I wrapped it up with some liner as well as some magnetic lashes, just to sort of give it a little bit more of an intense look, but I I really like this. This is one of my favorite looks to do with this palette, just the really sort of intense sparkly halo eye. You could definitely deepen this up to make it even more bold and even more intense if you wanted to, but I like it just as is. I really like that for a purple palette, you can kind of go fairly light or fairly deep. I do like the two neutral shades in here. I know a lot of people when this palette released did not like those. That would be Squeak and Downside Up, these two here. But I actually do like them because I think it helps to give you some more versatility in how light or how deep you're going to take your look. Overall, I do think the Flight Club palette is really, really good. This is the first eyeshadow palette I have ever tried from Menagerie, so I can't compare its formula or its quality to the other ones they've released. You'd have to check out some videos from people who've had more of their collection. I absolutely love the packaging as well. I think that's just so cute, this little bat. Adorable. I love the shade names. I think they're so sweet. My only real gripe that I have with this palette is that it stains. You probably saw that in the swatches, but it does stain. I find I can manage it, especially if I put a primer on underneath, but it does stain. I don't mind it so much. I wish it didn't stain, but I can work around it. I'll usually wear makeup every day, so I can cover it up the next day with foundation or concealer. If it does stain a little bit, it's not the end of the world for me. But if that does really bother you, this is a pressed pigment palette, and pressed pigments likely do stain, especially when they are deep shades like is in this palette. So just be aware of that if that is something that really bugs you. Personally, I do like to rearrange my shadows occasionally, and I do like to be able to take singles out of palettes if I'm traveling and I only want a couple options. Menagerie does have all magnetic palettes, so if you have a magnet at home, you can pop the pans right out of the palette and rearrange them or move them. So it's really, really easy if that's something that you like to do as well. But they are really secure, like you can shake the palette and they're not going to come out. So if you don't like to rearrange your palettes, don't worry, it's not a big deal. It's not going to change how you use the palette at all. I like the shimmers, they perform really well. You can apply them with a brush or a finger. There is some fallout. I have tried all the shimmers so far, and so far all of them do have some fallout for me. But again, it's not the end of the world. I can pretty easily sweep it away and I don't really notice it like lingering on the face. But if that is something that bothers you, just be aware of it. Overall, especially for the price point, I think this palette is excellent. I really, really enjoy it, and I'm excited to try more from Menagerie as they release more. I hope you found this video helpful in either, deciding whether you want to pick this palette up, or maybe an option of one of the looks you could do with it. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I would love to see you subscribed and back for my next video. Bye!